Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I'm your host tonight, Puck. This is the show where we want to take your calls about what you believe and why. And I just got really thrown off by that giant cockroach over there. And the reason we had a giant cockroach on is because every week we have a special guest, and this week is no exception. Tonight we have with us BrainBug. Hello, BrainBug.
Hi, I don't think that was a cockroach. I think it was a hemiptera of some kind. Just a silhouette, but they diverged from cockroaches, and cockroaches and mantises are in Blattoday, and I could go on and on about phylogeny, so you got to stop me, Puck.
And now we know why we call you BrainBug. so welcome to Truth Wanted. So I normally I would start out by having you introduce yourself, but that was probably the best intro that I've ever heard anybody give for themselves. So tell us a little bit about you, and I suppose the first big question is, BrainBug, why bugs?
Well, it was there was a point in time where it was going to be tree frogs, but the vivariums for that endeavor were much more expensive, and at the time I really wasn't in a place to make that kind of investment. So I got a pet tarantula, 2 pet tarantulas actually instead, and kind of fell in love with it and kept going. This was in the early 2000s. I amassed a great collection, and then when I had my kids, they when they started school, the teachers and stuff would want me to come in and do bug shows. So then I got really into doing that, started going around and traveling around and doing that at different locations and stuff, and birthday parties or whatever, doing these bug shows. It really just it enveloped me. I just fell in love with doing it. And then we got on lockdown, and I started really delving into different YouTube channels and engaging with different secular and science communities online. And I'm like, you know what? I have a lot of knowledge about bugs specifically, and animals in general, and ecology that I could be sharing with the world and doing the same thing I did with my bug show. So here I am, happy to be doing Truth Wanted tonight with you.
I'm okay. So there is a substantial portion of our audience who will be listening to the show on podcast form or listening in the background while doing something else. And for those of you who are doing that, I want to kind of paint the picture for you, because as BrainBug talks about his collection, a representative of his collection is actually on the microphone right now. BrainBug, could you introduce your co-host?
Yes, this is actually Hopper, and she was the first of my Asian giant mantises to molt out. We only got 1 male out of 5, which was unfortunate because the males don't live as long, and he molted out right after her and passed away. But this is an Asian giant mantis. They're one of the better mantises to keep as a pet. They're really easy to take care of. Now they are, as their name implies, they are native to Asia, specifically Southeast Asia. And this specimen actually has the jade jewel coloration, which is a little bit more rare. The other one, I'm sorry, Puck, are you gonna be okay?
I'll be. That's we're good.
Bag to breathe into or anything? Mantises are perfectly harmless to people, but they're excellent for protecting your garden from pest insects. If you have roses, if you have tomatoes, those are different. They really like bushy plants like that to live in and hunt in. They will basically take care of your pest species for you if you have a good robust number of them. I know people who have plants that they grow in their house, in their home, that they keep they just keep their mantises on there. I would do that if I could, but I have 2 dogs, so I can't. There'd be mantises and butterflies all over my house if I could get away with it without the dogs eating them.
And again, continuing to paint the picture, was that a tarantula plushie that I saw in the background there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Got this guy right here.
So it was in fact, everybody, a tarantula plushie, as well as, and I see several terrariums in the back there. Those are all filled with, okay.
This one, maybe you can't see that one. I got maybe I can.
Oh, there we go.
There we
My
go.
goodness.
Yeah. This is a Parabana lasiodora, a salmon pink bird eater tarantula. So this is one of the largest. You get on there so I can talk about the spider. I'm talking to my mantis, by the way. And yes, I do that. That's a thing I do on my channel too, if you aren't subscribed. But this is one of the largest species of tarantula. This one is not fully mature, but it does appear to be female. So it'll be with me for a long, long time. They get the name bird eater. It's a bit of a misnomer because one of the early explorers actually witnessed a member of the Theraphosa genus eating a hummingbird just by happenstance. They'll eat anything that goes past their little hidey holes, but they're mostly fossorial, which means they live underground. So birds are not a primary menu source for them, but the fact that it could eat a bird does hold water, and you can find plenty of videos of spiders eating birds. Now, one spider that I did do a debunking video on because someone said it was an Australian giant bird eater, it was actually an aviculera. I have back here a pink toe is also a common name for them. Mine is still a baby, but aviculera is a fun name because I don't know how familiar you are with Linnaean taxonomy, but aves is or avis, depending on your pronunciation to it, is the bird clade. So this actually gets its name from being a bird spider because we could jump out of the trees and they have really hairy legs. So they kind of glide in a similar fashion you see with like gliding frogs and lizards.
Okay, so this was definitely not the interview for someone to do who just played Resident Evil 7. I'll be fine. So science education then is really important to you. You said you were working with classrooms, and you said you had a YouTube channel where you talk a lot about this stuff. Why is this so? So why is this your niche?
Because insects are, and I call it the arthropod microcosm on my channel, but it's the base level world that we exist in. So ecology is not just spread over a geographic area. There's also layers stacked in to the ecology. So the microcosm, these right here, like this would be like the T-Rex of the microcosm. This is one of the top tier predators, but there's a whole ecosystem there that holds everything in balance. And everything in the microcosm feeds the mesocosm, which it works its way up, and everything's depending on that. And the things that suffer the most from the damage that humans do to the environment, it starts right here at the bottom, at that microcosm. We were talking about cicadas a little bit beforehand, and they live in the ground, right? And you'll see recipes, especially in the deep south, for cicada dishes. I can't recommend that anymore. I wish I could. I think insect protein is a wonderful alternative, and we'll be seeing more of it in the future. However, cicadas spend so much time underground. In the case of our 17-year cicadas that are coming out, the X group is supposed to be hatching, and I think you might be hearing some of them now. But they are coming out, and they've been underground for 17 years, soaking up. So if you think about the pollution that's been put into the ground for the last 17 years, and they've been in that groundwater soaking that up. So I can't recommend eating them. That's which is unfortunate because it's unfortunate for the ecology of the region as a whole, because I joke about people eating them, but as far as birds and rodents and spiders, all these predators that are depending on them, and they're coming out basically soaked in 20 years of poison. So
yeah, I get it. It's a bug's world, and we just happen to live in it, right?
Right. They say that it runs up or runs downhill. This is running uphill from insects and prey species on up to us.
Well, one of the reasons I was very excited to have a science educator on the show with me was because there's a couple of things that I've always wanted to ask and have answered, and I never really properly had the knowledge myself to address them. So now that I have you here and your entire menagerie, let's see if we can do this, because one popular thing that I'm sure we've heard a lot in atheist circles is that atheists have a lot of faith in science the same way that theists would have faith in their religion, right? So what would you have to say then to someone who because it's true, past a certain point, if I'm reading a scientific journal or watching a YouTube video about math, I'm not even able to follow along anymore. I just have to take their word for it. It's like, okay, P versus NP, sure. Okay. So what then is the difference between taking scientific information on faith and taking a theistic belief on faith? How would you put that together?
Okay. So this isn't a hard, at a certain point you do have to take the idea that the scientist knows what they're talking about or knows how to infer the data. But let's talk about where this stuff comes from, because I think that'll give us a good direction on how to vet that. So research is done multiple ways. You can do field research. You go out and, for instance, with like climate change, for example, you go out and you drill ice cores. But there's also scientists and climate scientists who spend their days in a lab crunching numbers and running models and building models and checking out the results and seeing if everything holds up. And then someone else will pull their research and do that again. And that's the peer review process. Okay, so you get your raw data, then you got your collection of that information, and then you have your evaluation of the data. And of course, you move from there to having your peer review it, which isn't the name of the process. They either will agree with what you've published or try to overturn it. If what you're saying conflicts with another research project or another paper that's been put out, and that may come up in some of the citations and some of the conclusions. So there's always behind every publication, there's this kind of robust web of people looking at it who have studied the topic, and checked, does this match up with what we already know? Does it conflate with that? Does it conflict with that? If so, why? What are the controls here? And people look at it over and over again, and you get a really robust scientific concept. The problems arrive.
Okay. Well, I gotta ask though, really quick though, because just because it comes from science sources, how do you know that that's not super biased information? Like, somebody's paying for a study. When we know about examples of this, where someone pays for a study to say, "Hey, Gatorade is really good for your hydration." How do we know that these articles that are published aren't with an agenda?
Right, and that's and you really people can, of course, do this under the table too. But a lot of these. Like you said, the Gatorade thing, there was the smoking stuff back in the day when they would do the studies that they pay the doctors to say, oh yeah, smoking doesn't cause harm to your health, or climate change again, stuff by big fossil fuel companies. What the main thing you can do is vet your sources. Okay. And it's hard. It can be. And you're always going to get to a point where, there's people even that don't check, that don't trust fact checkers, that don't trust fact checking sources. So there's always going to be naysayers to anything, but you kind of got to look at what they're saying. You kind of got to try to interpret the information. That's where pop science comes into play, which is, and I do rag on pop science a little bit on my channel, but I am pop science, so I can't be too hard about it.
Right.
Because pop science serves a function of taking the hard data released by the scientists and putting it in terms where the average person can understand. So that's where you get, like you were talking about, if someone was doing some physics papers, I wouldn't be able to understand pulling up those physics papers, I wouldn't be able to interpret the information in there. So I depend on the authors, and most of the time, the good pop science resources, the people have some kind of training in the field that you can actually look into to see, is this person actually going to give me an honest interpretation of what this science paper says? So you can look into that. Nature has a publication that's not just their hard science papers, but also articles written by people in the field. So you can trust that. But that is why the peer review process is so important. Like you were saying about, how do we know this person isn't paid off? That's where we look to. That's why it's so important to have different people from different institutions and different universities reviewing this information over and over again. And nothing is ever done. You're never done. This is settled science. It never is. You can always do another experiment. There's always more contingencies. There's always more variables. There's so many variables.
No, that's another thing that we get too, that if science is always continuing to say, oh, well, we were wrong about what we said 10 years ago. We were wrong about what we said 50 years ago. Why are we listening to anything they have to say now?
Yeah, and there's in 50 years from now, 20 years from now, we're going to look back at the stuff we knew today and be like, oh my gosh, can you believe we used to think this? Can you believe we used to think that? But that's a good thing. It's not that. So we see like the Texas sharpshooter fallacy with a lot of religious claims when it comes to science, like saying, oh, see, the Bible predicted this about the world or predicted this about biology or things like that. And they're really just looking at the information after we understand these factors and drawing a target around it and saying, yep, the Bible predicted this. Where with science, we don't have that luxury where we can say, oh, well, we had this paradigm before, so we're gonna pretend that this new discovery confirms that or infer that information. No, we have to say, oh, we were wrong about this. I love being wrong about things, Puck. I do. I love being wrong about things because it means that I get to learn something new.
Yes, who was I forget what show that was. So this is definitely not original material, but there was a TV show. Someone said, "I love being wrong because it means eventually I get to be right."
Right.
So
yeah,
it's like, oh no, what is it? I'm wrong all the time. It's how I eventually become right. Right.
Right.
All right.
The more times you're wrong, the more times you're right.
Yeah. Well, we are a call-in show, as we like to remind you. So please feel free to call us with any questions you might have, any supernatural or paranormal claims, or if you have any fun questions about science, knowledge, and education. But before we get to that, I do want to ask you one last time, though, BrainBug. Seeing that I'm a layperson and our audience is probably full of lay people, how do we look at an article that we get thrown out at Facebook or Twitter or wherever we find it and start to vet that for, is this good, reliable information?
Okay, so you want to, first and foremost, look at the source that you're getting it from. If it's a news source, what kind of news source is it? Are they a credible news source? Are they known for publishing? I don't want to say that's false information. It's like what I was talking about with the way that things are presented in pop science magazines, and they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell the story to you. So as I was, a good example would be when they say, oh yeah, new species discovered in Colombia, as the headline, and you go into it and it's talking about a species that we already knew existed, that we just didn't know it lived in Colombia, but you were snagged in by the thought of being a brand new species. So when you read that article, the first thing you do is say, who's publishing this? What kind of credibility do they have just in the general market? Not just as about science, but just in general, because things like when I did my review of Matt Powell's dino fart video, he cited a Fox News article as his source. So you start off right there with, that this is probably going to have some right-wing leaning, probably some Christian or at least probably a little bit evangelical even leaning. So you start there and you kind of work your way back. So then I looked at the article. The headline was, dinosaurs farted themselves into extinction. So we dig into that and we look at the environmental impact of the diet and the digestion of the food that the giant sauropods ate. And yeah, we can infer based on our understanding of the environment and the internal environment of the digestion process that there was methane gas that would have had an impact on the environment, and it may have caused climate change, which led to maybe some extinctions, maybe some diversifications, maybe some radiations. Climate change, it impacts us now. It impacted us in the past, and it's not. We aren't the first animals to impact it. Any large grazing creature has had an impact on climate change. I'm sorry, I get on these tangents.
No. This is your this is the host or the guest interview. We're supposed to be focused on you anyway. By all means, go on. It's just like the big thing that I wanted to get at is just check your sources, check them multiple times.
Right.
Find the same news information from other sources. Yeah.
When I got into the article that the Fox News article was citing, that's what they were saying, that that dinosaurs released methane into the environment, which changed the climate and may have caused extinctions. Not the big extinction, not the KT extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs did not wipe themselves out with methane. So, and then I looked further into that, and it was just the source on that was that they were just looking at the possible impact of methane on the Mesozoic environment. It see how that escalated until all of a sudden dinosaurs farted themselves into extinction because people using bad sources and making false claims because they misinterpret the information that they're receiving. So always vet your sources.
Oh yeah, I remember a few years ago I saw an article that said that life had been discovered on a comet, when really, if you actually read the article and go past the headline, it was like what amino acids are known to degrade into. Some trace of that was discovered on the surface of a comet, which leads to the possibility that it went crazy from there. And of course, then by the time it gets to your Facebook feed, and some of your more conspiracy believing friends will go in there and say, look, they found life on a comet. Therefore, panspermia is definitely the new hypothesis to go by.
Right.
Yeah. Check your sources, everybody.
And watch out for quote mining. That is one of the worst things that happens in these situations. You take something that the scientist, the researcher has said, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. You take a snippet of what they said. Like, for instance, just the what Darwin said about the eye, where you can take that little clip, or what was it Richard Dawkins about panspermia, where they asked if there was a situation where he understood that, or he would accept that that life had come from outside, and he said, yeah, panspermia would be the only thing that I would be willing to accept, and they cut that out to make it sound like he was saying that he accepted panspermia. It was really deceptive, and they do that with Darwin quotes all the time. They do that with these conspiracy types. Will do that with Hawkins and just anybody that they can quote mine to make their point sound like it's backed by a reasonable source, which kind of comes back to being an argument from authority. But we're not even going to get into that.
No, and this is so relevant because I mean, even in the news today. And but by today I mean like recently, not necessarily today, but there's a lot of talk about some emails that were just released to the public, and of course everybody already has their take on it. And I doubt that too many of those people who've had that take have read all 3,200 pages, which I've downloaded. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm working on it.
They're going to the Fauci emails, right?
Yeah, and they're going to already pick out their preferred narrative from there, and they're going to report as if that narrative was true. Check your sources. Check the sources of your sources. Verify. Double check.
I want to tell people to push back when someone brings you this. I've read this, or I got this from Fauci's emails. This is what he said. This is what he said. Ask them how they understand what that means, especially if it's technical data that they're giving you. If he said this, size or this dosage or anything like that, and you don't think that they are being genuine about understanding that someone has told them that this disproves that that COVID was a released experiment by the Chinese government, or that it was that masks don't work. Any of these narratives that they're gonna, and you can see it coming, that these letters are going, or emails are going to lead to. Ask them how they know what they know about what they say.
Yeah, it's already out. There's several response videos already saying whatever they want to say about the information on those emails. I personally haven't looked at too many of those yet, but they've already been sent to me, and boy, I can hardly wait. So, all right. Well, we're going to get to calls in just a moment here, but we did want to say that one way you can support us, should you like the work that we're doing, is to check us out on Patreon. And every week we will call out our very special patron of the week. And this week is no exception. So if we could have the drum roll, please. Our patron of the week this week is Kalevi Helveti. I apologize if I butchered that. I guess I decided it's Dan's week on vacation, so let's give Puck the really difficult name to pronounce. So Kalevi Helveti, congratulations, you are the patron of the week. This could be you. Go to patreon.com/truthwanted and help support the show. So,
Ooh, patron of the week.
Yes. So you ready to get to calls?
Yeah, let's get some calls on. Let's
Okay, this one jumped out at me right away. So let's take this call over here. This is Matt from Maryland. How you doing tonight?
Hi, Matt.
Hey, thanks guys for having me on. Yeah, so I'm calling in. I'll just get right to it about UAPs, which that's unidentified aerial phenomenon, but more commonly known to people as UFOs. And there's been a lot of hype in the news recently about the military admitting to, now they don't say it's aliens because we don't know, but they're just saying there's unidentified aerial phenomena that it exceeds our military capabilities, is the quote that I've found. And yeah, there's going to be a Senate report on this later this month.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, I know, right? So,
Yes.
so I don't know if you guys have heard much about this or thought about it, but I would just ask
Oh,
you,
yeah,
do you guys think it's aliens, or what alternative explanations might there be?
I had my my pilot friend, and he's a pilot. I'm not saying that makes him any better at making these inferences than anybody else, but go through some of those videos and kind of explain what was going on. There's been some claims that were made about the UFO phenomenon. I think it was it in Virginia, off the Virginia coast, that there were claims that from pilots that they were seeing a UFO phenomenon on a daily basis. One clip that we looked at is, I think it's one of the most popular ones, where it shows sort of a amorphous kind of maybe a little bit cylinder shaped object moving apparently at high speeds according to the instruments, and it didn't seem to be venting any kind of exhaust or anything. Is that kind of what you're familiar with too, Matt?
Yeah, that one, that kind of, I think if that's the same one I'm thinking of, I think they call that the Tic Tac one. To me,
Yeah.
what it isn't, like, the videos aren't even all that spectacular. Like, when I watch it, it just looks like, a dot on a screen. It's like real grainy and stuff.
It's
but
almost the reaction to the
they've
pilots, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they definitely sound surprised and stuff, but apparently, like, they take, like, radar measurements and, like, the stuff they use in our military, like, against, like, other nations if they think they're spying on us and stuff or whatever. I don't know a whole lot about that, but apparently they're saying, like, whatever these objects are, they're doing things motion-wise that exceed our own or the capabilities of any other nation that we're aware of.
And that is the thing, is what it really comes down to when people are looking into these, when people who break down tapes like this or videos like this, it's coming down to, are they really doing things that we don't expect? So I'll use my pilot friend told me one thing, because he was familiar with the instrument panel and how things were showing up on there. Paul Kamish, by the way, he's got a YouTube channel too. He talks about flying and stuff. If you check him out, he's on YouTube as well. But that the way that the heat signatures was set up was for the hot objects to appear black on the screen. So the way the instrument picks that up is it makes this white halo around it, and people have been presenting, oh, this is zero G technology that we're looking at here. There's some kind of halo around that's making it fly. But we can see that when other planes and helicopters and stuff are on radar as well. The other one that I saw The one you see the ocean surface down below, and there's an item or object that cuts across the screen. I guess I need to do that mirrored because cuts across the screen, a little white object. But if you pause it just right, there's a section where you can see that flapping its wings, and that's the one that they're talking about moving faster than any aircraft that we know of. And it's really not. It's a seabird of some kind, probably doing a little bit of a dive towards the surface after some fish. These are the interpretations, and I interpreted that myself. So when I saw the video, but if you've seen that one, I'd like to hear your interpretation of it.
See, really, I just want to go off of that right now. If anybody here in Cincinnati claims to be seeing anything suspicious in the sky and they're at ground level, my first thought instantly is cicada, because those things are surprisingly large. I mean, they're larger than most little bugs that you'd see flying around, and they fly. They will dive bomb toward you, and they fly very sporadically. So like my first thought right now would be that. My second thought is, if there really are aliens and they're investigating us, I suppose my weird thought is, why would they send something so obvious? If something has the technology to, is that a pupa?
No, it's a cicada.
It's a
They're big. Yeah, that's as big as my thumb. So they're huge.
Whatever train of thought I had is now completely gone. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm good. I'm good.
I just happen to have
but
one.
I guess where I'm coming from is, if the reason I can't jump to aliens, and this is me personally, okay, is because if an alien species is so sufficiently advanced that they can get over here, they should probably know better than to do something that shows up in our atmosphere, right? And there was an X-Files episode about 20-something years ago that postulated that if you're going to send something to Earth to investigate life here, send them in the form of insects. Because nobody really thinks anything of them. Nobody's going to suspect if you see a fly on the wall taking surveillance, right? That's what stops me from going to the alien route. And so I suppose the pragmatist in me is also saying, like, let's figure out what this is first before figuring out, trying to say that we know anything more about them. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, that's already exactly where I'm at. I wasn't ever positing that this was aliens, but I do. I mean, the other host. Sorry, I didn't check you guys' name, but sorry, Ryan. Yeah, was saying about some video where it seemed like pretty obvious to him that it was a seabird. I don't know that I've seen that, but that, like, I haven't even seen most of these videos. I've just been hearing the reports about it, and just hearing from different intelligence officials and what they have to say about it. I think Obama said something about it too, where it's like, yeah, there's, these things and we don't know what they are. And like, I always think, like, well, if we have no explanation, then it is unexplained, and therefore we don't know what it is.
Right.
And I would stop right there. It's like, it's unexplained. If it's unexplained, let's not come up with explanations.
Yeah. Then we need to start breaking down the features of it to try to see if we can't sort out what it is. And maybe it could be technology that we don't understand, even if it's a new kind of aerial vehicle or drone that we don't know about. That there's still a multitude of natural possibilities before we go extraterrestrial. So I'm with both of you right now that we shouldn't be inferring aliens on this stuff at all.
Yeah, it's like, and then my next question is like, okay, what am I supposed to do about it? Right? Like, as a commoner person over here, if it is aliens, if it is advanced military technology, it's like, how is that going to change my life tomorrow? What should I be doing about this? And it's probably not going to significantly alter my commute in the morning. So I would look at this and say, hey, yeah, that's cool. It's unexplained. Let's wait and try to figure things out a little bit more. Where are you taking that, Matt?
Well,
like you see them, you have an idea about them, obviously. So what do you think we should do?
Well, I think we should definitely investigate further. But just as a layperson, I kind of think it's just fun to speculate about the different, like, alien or non-alien. Just what could it be? Like Chelsea Manning seems to have this interesting hypothesis that perhaps like just thinking about all the different possibilities, like, what if it isn't aliens, but it is like leftover like alien technology. There's actually a name for this in science fiction that I forget that she used, but yeah, I don't put any stock in that particularly, but I just think it's fun to talk. And like I haven't heard a lot of like the seabird like video, or I don't know what the actual name of it would be, but like, yeah, if that seems that obvious to be a seabird, then it's definitely not like any of these other phenomena that I've been hearing about. Like,
yeah, and like you said, it's like it's
me,
fun to talk about, and it's fun to speculate, and it's fun to, you know, like write fiction about it and have it inspire fiction, certainly. But I suppose I would draw the line at when it becomes a specific call to action, right? Like aliens are out there, so let's you know, those Raelians who called last week, you know, they probably were onto something, so we should probably work on that alien United Nations landing pod that they told us that we should be building. So this is what I'm talking about. Like it's fun to, yeah, okay, I get it. Let's sit and let's say, hey, what could it be? Let's stop at acting on what we think it might be. Are you with me on that, Matt?
yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not acting as if an alien invasion is going on or anything. If that's what you're asking, like, I don't think anyone's. Well, I think it's pretty obvious the people who are doing that, because they'll be running around like mad. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think even if we were able to determine it's aliens, like, let's say we find like multiple lines of, you know, self-reinforcing evidence that is like nearly like as good of evidence that we can get that it is aliens. Still, I mean, what can we do about it? You know, like, it's still the same,
Right.
But
Especially as
I
like
think it would
just
definitely be even more interesting conversation.
especially as just three dudes just on the internet. There's not much that we could do about an alien invasion. I agree. I don't know that I've seen anything that makes me think that any of these would be aliens. If you have a video that you want to suggest to me to watch, because I watched the ones the Pentagon's released so far, and that's been my takeaway from them. I feel like
So for me, it's well, like I said, I'm not jumping to the conclusion that any of these are aliens. But the and for me, the less thing that, like, if for like a bunch of the UFO stuff that I've seen before, it seems pretty obvious. Like, oh yeah, that seems like it, or like, even if I don't know what it is, it's like, okay, well, you know, there's nothing extraordinary about this phenomena or whatever. But to me, what is extraordinary about this stuff is not even the videos, because the videos just look like something centered on a screen or whatever. Like, you don't even know what it is. But the data that apparently is coming out, and the measurements that they've taken on these things. Now, I'm no expert in, you know, radar or whatever, and I know you talked about your friend. So you know, maybe it is like nothing, but, you know, I don't know.
This kind of does circle back around to what me and Puck were talking about right before this call about vetting sources. So as far as I've been able to weed out of this, some of the claims that I've heard that have been spread around are not true about it. Which specific claims are you referring? Because like the anti-gravity drive, saying, oh, this white area is a field of anti-gravity around it. No, it's just the way that the heat signature picks up on the radar. But what specific claims was it? The one about the speed? Is that the one you're talking about? What about these sightings or videos? Do you think implies that it was that it may have been something alien, or that it could have been something alien?
Well, so off the top of my head, I can't remember any specifics about this, but off the top of my head, the best thing I can recall is I think it was just a day or two ago, the Pentagon put out a report, and basically, like, they said, we can't confirm it's aliens, but we don't know what this is. And that wasn't news to me. Like, yeah.
I think that's basically what it came
They-
down to. They said that we don't know what this is. It is an unidentified flying object. Yes, these are UFOs, and then some people took that as confirming existence of alien life, and it's just, and it's not that. That's not what was said. I don't think that's what's being interpreted either, at least not by our
Well, I
military.
think they put this recent thing out because so many people were associating UFO with alien, which I do think is good. Like, people should realize if it's unknown or unidentified, then we don't, by definition, we don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you could technically say it's alien to the extent that you don't know who the pilot is or where they're from.
But alien to the point that we're getting visitors from another planet, I don't think I can quite follow you there. This is a good time to bring up. If you do have any videos that you want to share with us, there are a number of fantastic places you can do so. If you want to email us, for example, truth@atheist-community.org. And BrainBug is not on that email address, but if you do send something, I'll make sure it gets right over.
I'll see it.
Yeah, we also have a Facebook fan group that you would be able to join, and the administrators, I'm sure, would be okay with you posting links to the video. There we go. Look at that, facebook.com groups/truthfg. And just to really quickly also mention the atheist community of Discord, where there are a number of people who would love to talk to you about this, and they do also allow posting of links on there. And we'll be on there after the show, so we'll get to hang out with you. If you want to join that and post some videos in the Truth Wanted page, please do so we can get a better look at this. We're going to let you go and get some other callers, Matt, but thank you very much for calling and hanging out with us tonight.
Appreciate you, Matt.
Yeah. Nice meeting you too. Make sure you guys check your sources too, all right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Let us move on to, here is Jason from Rhode Island. Hello, Jason.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Jason. I'm an atheist. So I had a question kind of for how to debate people, and it kind of centers around the definition of possible and impossible, because I've heard several people use them kind of interchangeably with different definitions, and I think it would be helpful if they at least realized they were doing that. So I'm not explaining.
So can we clarify real quick here before we get too much into this? Because there's two types of possibility and impossibility. There's physical possibility and impossibility, and then there's logical possibility and impossibility. Do you know which one that the person you're engaging with is referring to?
Yeah, I don't. I myself have never actually heard it broken up that way, so you might actually already be ahead of the game on where I was going.
Okay.
So in some forms of logic, the only thing that they mean when they say possible and impossible is that it doesn't create any logical contradictions, right? So there's some people who are talking about like, I absolutely hate possible world semantics. But there are some people who will talk about it in the sense of, well, it's not a contradiction. It could theoretically exist. It just doesn't exist here, but it could exist. And then there's this whole, what is that called? Modal logic terms about wondering about possible worlds. I don't dig too deeply into philosophical circles, so I'm really glad BrainBug is here to do the digging for.
My knowledge is more of where it overlaps with the empirical possibilities. So the difference between a logical possibility is that there's no law of logic that would have to be violated in order for something to happen. And laws of logic is like the law of no contradiction and things like that. Like it can't be A and not be A. It has to be A if it's A. It can't be A and then and not be A. So for something to fill that role, would be able to break a law of logic, the law of non-contradiction. So that would be a logical impossibility. Whereas a physical impossibility is like there's no logical reason why I can't grow wings from my back right now and just fly out the window. But there are physical reasons why I can't do that. So that would be the physical impossibility. There's nothing in the natural world that would indicate that should be something that's possible, but it doesn't violate any laws of logic because there's no reason why that shouldn't be possible under the logical framework.
So, Jason, are you having a lot of conversations where this pops up?
Not as much anymore. I used to spend a lot of time on out on a boat, just floating around the ocean though, and we had some bored people just sitting on a boat. Sometimes the conversation turns oddly philosophical.
That happens when you're hanging out long nights, just filling conversation, and yeah, I get it. Start speculating on the possibilities of the universe.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where we lead to it leads to one of the things that really sucks for me is that the English language is kind of limited, and where there might be different, like BrainBug was saying, there's a difference between a physical and a logical impossibility. We use the same word to describe it, though. We use impossible or possible, and there's a branch of apologetics that likes to talk about possible, and that by saying, oh, how did they put it? If it is possible that God exists in some possible world, then in order to be maximally great, he has to exist in all possible worlds. And if he exists in all possible worlds, by definition, he exists in this world. Right?
It's God into existence. Yeah.
Right. And they forget that like they smuggled in exists as one of those things that makes something great or necessary. So I was just wondering where you came up with this. I mean, whenever I run into this in circles, it's usually with not the most honest interlocutors. So I was just wondering who you're talking to this comes up with.
Well, I don't want to give their name or anything.
Oh, no.
What kind of position that they're holding?
What kind of conversation?
Or is it a theist or an atheist or to me a deist?
Oh, it was. I think I mostly heard it from theists, although I did have one very frustrating conversation with someone who made every comment about how God is real and heaven is real and a bunch of other things, and then at the end of it, pulled a complete surprise card. And by the way, I'm Buddhist. I was like, wait, what?
Well, Buddhist.
Very confused by that guy.
Buddhists, there are sects of Buddhism that are atheists too. So it's a very flexible belief system, depending on what you're basing that on. But yeah, like Puck, I've mostly heard this argument from apologists, usually seasoned apologists who've kind of honed that argument. And so hearing that you're engaging with just lay people is a little easier to help you address it, because when you're dealing with apologists, whatever responses that we could give you, they may have further gotcha moments that they're going for with the whole argument, because we're almost working our way back into a when you start talking about whatever's logically possible has to be like what Puck was saying about God existing in one universe. He has to exist in all of them. So you start getting into almost like a Hume's issue where you're facing either some infinite source or you're dealing with infinite regress. I guess to me, having an infinite source, a creator or designer, or infinite regress, it's the same thing. It's just personifying an infinite regress when you put a God on it.
No, I hear you, and you I suppose I have to apologize, because as soon as we see that someone wants to talk about what is possible and impossible, the hackles kind of go up a little bit, because we BrainBug and I have been around these conversations before, and we're like, oh, is this going to be one of those? But it wasn't, and we're glad that. And thank you very much for coming in here with this interesting question. I'm not sure we really helped you much with it, other than to say that it really, you're going to have to ask the person who you're talking about, what do they mean by impossible,
right?
And be careful that they're not trying to pin you down, because usually when they give you a dichotomy like that, they have an answer for one or the other, and they completely rule out anything in the middle, right? Like my favorite example is there is an objectively correct number of people who were bitten by mosquitoes in the United States in the past 24 hours. There's a number. Is it possible for us to find out what that number is? Now, logically, it's not impossible to find that out. We would need a ridiculous amount of surveillance and technology that's beyond us. I can't even imagine. But
Physically,
it's not
impossible,
by
so,
the book impossible. So you have to kind of figure out what exactly impossible means to them.
Well, thank you, but we've kind of danced around the exact question I had.
Oh, have we? Okay, so sorry about that. Clear it up for us.
Honestly, though, I'm very glad we went on that divergence because it is extremely close. In fact, I fully admit, and I apologize if this is the case, that I might just be thinking of it in a slightly different, like I might be thinking about the same thing, but using different words and not recognizing that we're talking about the same thing. And if that's the case, by all means, clear it up for me, please. But anyway, so, but I am glad that you brought up that the argument for God that was based off of, well, possibilities, because that's actually, I'm pretty sure that was the most ridiculous instance I've ever seen of this. So
that's generally the direction when you're talking about this topic that it goes.
Yeah.
You're eventually going to get there.
Yeah. So if for more homework on this,
Yeah.
look up the modal ontological argument. Off the top of my head, I know that Capturing Christianity and Inspiring Philosophy have both done. They're both proponents of the modal ontological argument, so you can see it presented in its best case. And then to see what we think of it, I'm sure you don't have to go very far, but my personal favorite would be Apologia's takedown of the modal ontological argument. So we'll leave you a little bit of homework over there. We got to get going,
Right.
but thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Before you
Appreciate
go,
you,
I
Jason.
just want to make sure, did we actually get to the meat that you wanted to get to, or did we fail to address your point?
We didn't get to it, but that's probably my part. Foul. I didn't explain it very well at the beginning, and like I said, we weren't like way off. We were pretty close to on topic the whole time. I just couldn't really stop you guys from talking.
I hope at the very least that we built you a nice framework.
What you said was interesting, though.
Yeah, I hope at the very least we built you a nice framework to build your concept of possible and impossible, and some questions to follow up when you're presented with that argument, because you do need to clarify. You're talking about logical impossibility. You're talking about a physical impossibility. You want to push for those details. That will color your response.
Yeah. And we just talked about ways you can keep in contact with us. So if it does occur to you to a different way to explain it or ask it, definitely hit us up in one of the different ways you can do that. So because I want to keep this going. The conversations we have here are brief by necessity, but they don't have to end just because we hang up. So please keep this dialogue going. I look forward to hearing from you in Discord, email, or Facebook. Thank you very much, Jason.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Oh, this is so awesome. This is someone who actually called a couple weeks ago when I was on here. So it appears that I have my very first rival. This is Paul from England. How are you doing, Paul?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. It's good to hear from you again.
Yeah, you too. My question was really just about the Kalam. Obviously, it's one of the most popular arguments to use. I was wanted to know why you personally don't really see how it works. I mean, I would assume that you don't anyway, but I just wanted to hear your opinion on the argument.
BrainBug, you want to start with this one, or do you want me to go for it?
Okay, so Paul, let's just start with the first premise and see how far we can get into it. You go ahead and state your first premise for the Kalam.
Well, I guess I'll start with the most common version. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, the most common version, whatever. Yeah, whatever begins to exist, or whatever exists had a beginning, right? Or yeah.
No, it would be wherever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause.
Okay, so what begins to exist? What are we familiar with that begins to exist?
Yeah, we haven't got any examples of things that begins to exist so far.
Right.
We know things that just change from one state to another.
Right. So how do we get past that first step of the Kalam if we can't even demonstrate that things begin to exist? That's what snags me up. How do we get past that? And when we move past that and we get into causality of, okay, so something begins to exist because you're putting begins before time. Now time is it's a temporal concept. So causality is part of its description is to be within a temporal framework. So causality, as far as I can tell, doesn't work outside of a temporal framework. So having one action cause another, having a prime mover, all these notions of what started the universe, what created things in its current state that hinge on this prime mover concept, they don't seem to engage with the fact that we're talking about before Planck time. Now, if an argument could be made that there was a different temporal framework outside of Planck time that we know, yeah, that's possible, but I don't know that there's any information about it.
Okay, well, there were two things you said there. The first thing is we aren't exactly saying that that things begin to exist because of our experience. We're saying that it's possible for things to exist. For things to begin to exist. In other words, there isn't a contradiction in saying that. And also because if things keep on just rearranging from a previous state, then you would have an infinite regress. And proponents of the Kalam don't accept that there are problems with infinite regress.
Doesn't the Kalam lead to an infinite regress when you get to the end of it? Because you're an eternal.
No. Because they said that everything that begins to
exist
exist has a cause. If something doesn't begin to exist, then it doesn't need a cause. Am I anywhere in the ballpark here, Paul?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See, but that then now we get into a whole completely different set of problems. The first of which is for me is that, again, everything that begins to exist, right? Like we've never really don't have a lot of examples of things that have begun to exist. Everything that we know of is just a rearrangement of other matter or energy. So okay, so now what? Like what how can you say that everything that begins to exist if we have no way of looking back at what began to exist? And then the very end of it, and this is the big problem for me, is okay, it has a cause. Okay, fantastic, it has a cause. Now what? It's like we don't know enough about physics, about our reality, even to be even able to guess as to what that cause is with any reasonable measure of confidence. And the usual extension then of the Kalam is that it must be what is it? Oh, let me see if I get this. Spaceless, timeless, immaterial, and powerful and personal. Right? Like, how do you even begin to come to those conclusions? Like the weirdest one is powerful. Right? Like, how do you know what kind of power it takes to do the snap that it takes to kick off whatever it is that started the universe? I don't know what it is. But then I look at something like a forest fire. It doesn't take something very powerful. As devastating as a forest fire is, it takes a spark. One little tiny spark, not very powerful. And if it was in the wrong conditions, nothing happens. But it was just the right conditions where something not very powerful caused a tremendous amount of devastation. So there are so many problems I have with the not just the Kalam, but then the extension of the Kalam when you start looking at what must this cause be, because you have no way of meaningfully investigating that cause. And the only thing that tells me about the people who are coming up to conclusions about that is that it's not based on a complete understanding of what exactly it would take to cause the start of a universe. So what am I missing, Paul?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that in order to do away with the notion of things beginning to exist, I suppose you'd have to say that because we see no things beginning to exist, therefore the concept of things beginning to exist can't be the case. It can't be true, and that would be a black swan fallacy. Merely because there isn't any evidence for a claim doesn't mean that claim is false. So merely because we don't see things beginning to exist doesn't mean that that's not the case.
I agree, but it does also mean that we don't jump to conclusions about what that cause is.
We don't get past the first step of the Kalam that way. That's the problem. We can't move forward with the Kalam if we can't accept that, if we don't have evidence to believe, not to disbelieve. We're not saying we don't believe that everything that exists began to exist. We're saying that the evidence doesn't show that from what we can see. No evidence yet.
Yeah, but we're not relying on evidence in this case. This isn't like our science can't really help us as much when we're going this far back. I mean, and when we're talking about things that are this far away from our everyday experience, really, this is about logic. So when I say whatever begins to exist has a cause, and you have a problem with me saying things can begin to exist because we don't see that in everyday experience, I'm merely saying that this is possible. I'm not saying that that we need.
Yeah, so it's logically possible.
We'll grant you possible. What we don't grant you is why should we do anything about that possibility?
Well, you don't need to do anything about the possibility. All I need is the possibility for that part of the argument to actually work.
Again, I think you said you completely lost both of us. Try that again.
All you need is the concept of things beginning to exist being possible for the argument to work. I don't have to provide evidence that is the case.
Accepting that all things had a cause is accepting the possibility that all things may have had a cause is all you're asking for in the first step of the Kalam, because every time I've engaged with it, that's been no. We need you to accept that this is a fact, that all things that exist had a cause.
Are we rewriting this? It's like everything that begins to exist had a possible cause for its existence,
right? So accepting that
the first premise is whatever begins to exist has a cause. You said, why bother talking about things beginning to exist when we don't see that in everyday experience? I'm saying that it's merely possible, so it's fine for us to talk about it. Okay,
so it's possible, but you're still not saying that it's definite, right? Or am I missing something?
I'm saying that it's possible for things to begin to exist. Whether everything that begins to exist has a cause is a separate thing. So if you'd like to talk about that, then that's fine.
Help the pragmatist here, Paul. Like, why are we talking about things if they are possible, if we're not coming up with an actual this is happening, let's figure out why? I mean, why are we armchair philosophizing? What are we trying to get to here?
Well, I asked for your opinions on the Kalam, and then you said that, or one of the two of you said that you don't see the point in saying that in having things beginning to exist when we don't see that in everyday experience.
I don't know if it was everyday experience. We don't see that at all. Is the thing. It doesn't seem to be a product of the natural world that we see that things come into existence. We don't. But
it's still possible, so we can use that in the argument. When it comes to showing,
it is logically. There's no
there's that word possible again. Where's Matt when we need him?
Yeah, and maybe I'm speaking too soon because I know that they have detected protons. Is it that are coming into that'll pop into existence?
No, it's Jason.
Yeah, but we're getting into science then. We're starting to talk about philosophy. So going into what you're saying. Okay, so first premise weeks. Let's accept it. Let's say we accept that under your terms, because that's not the way I've heard it worded before. But I'll accept that it is possible that all things had a cause. We can take that step. Okay, now move me to the second step.
I think there's been a misunderstanding. I just said that it's possible for things to begin to exist. The first premise, whatever begins to exist has a cause, actually does require evidence, and the evidence would be that if things the evidence, I guess, would be the overwhelming inductive evidence that we see in everyday experience.
Wait. How do we move from where we can't say that this is something we don't deal with every day to this is something like how did we smuggle that back in? What did I miss?
Well, your objection to the notion of things beginning to exist.
So it's possible for things to begin to exist, but again, it's possible doesn't mean it is. So why should we start on the branch of it is instead of it might not? Help me out.
Well, because
if it's possible, why are we acting like it's already the case? We just got to possible, not definite. So how are you getting to definite or not?
It's definite because mainly because of the impossibility of an infinite regress. If things are constantly there and is rearranging, then things then the reality would go back to basically it will go back to infinity, and that can't be the case because if there were an infinite amount of moments in the past, we could never actually arrive.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the
Concept of
typical
infinite
objections to that.
regress.
But again, what this tells me is that okay, so the problem that I have here, Paul, is that physics as we know it and rules of physics and the laws of the universe, they don't scale very well, right? The ways that large objects move and the ways that very small objects move, they play by a complete.
I think Puck might be frozen up. Yeah.
What was that?
Give me just a second here. So when it comes to infinite regress, are you, Paul, under the impression that infinite regress would be in effect outside of Planck time?
Infinite regress would just be things going back and essentially having no beginning.
Right, which is beginning. Beginning is another temporal concept, right? It has it's an order of event. So it's cause and effect. All these things are orders of event that exist inside a temporal framework. But in order for them to apply in the way the Kalam wants to interpret them, we have to apply them outside of the temporal framework.
Yeah. That was one aspect of the argument that I did struggle with. But the thing is, I suppose that the cause would occur in time. You would have whatever this first cause was, and the instant that it causes the universe to come into existence would be the instant that time starts. So it would happen within time. It's called simultaneous causation. It's quite a difficult.
I'm familiar with that pushback against it, but so much of this is depends on being within time. So you would argue that with the creation event, are you proposing a creator in this scenario, the hypothetical that we're going through at the end of it when you're for your Kalam? Yeah. Okay, because some people, and it's true, in my opinion, that the Kalam does not lead us specifically to a deity, but so I always like to try to ask and make sure that the person I'm engaging with, whether they believe it does or not. So what is the proposition that the entity came into existence and started moving at the same time as well, that there's simultaneous causality there as well?
Yeah, essentially that this first cause would be timeless, and that would put it in a very strange situation in which it can't create, and in which it can't really change. But obviously, we have the universe here, so the instant in which it causes the universe would be the first change, and at the first change, time would start existing. So that would be fine in that case. I mean, I guess that answers what you said.
It gets hard to speculate on things like that, really, doesn't it? The concept of timelessness in itself, what kind of nature would that, what would we be looking at with something like that? What kind of properties will we expect? There's a lot of speculation there that I'm not prepared to make that jump as to.
It isn't really like much of a jump, to be honest. It's kind of just saying that physical reality can't keep on going back, and since that's the case, obviously you would need to accept that in the first place.
Okay, well, so like I said, the big thing from here, for me anyway, is that, and I do have to apologize because you always call and we don't have a lot of time to talk, and so we gotta start wrapping this up. But I suppose where I'm coming from here is that, like I was saying before I disappeared momentarily, that we don't have a lot of understanding of a lot of things, and to say that infinite regress is impossible. Sure, it seems impossible to us, but we really don't know what time looks like that close. So if we don't know, then how are we coming to any sort of conclusion? Like the big question is why we don't like the Kalam. And or why we're not convinced with the Kalam. And the reason is because of all the things you're talking about. You're seeing things like possible, and and now you lead to different conclusions about what this causes. There's too many I don't knows. There's too many unknowns that are filled with something that does make some logical sense. I'll give you that. It's not completely arbitrary and out of nowhere, but it's also nowhere near definitive. And as much as we can armchair philosophize this and say, well, I can't think of any reason why this couldn't be, then that just shows the limit of our understanding of the physics of not just the universe, but what it takes to start universes. And I think it should start with, I don't know enough about universes to be able to say what causes them, instead of saying, if it does have a cause, then I know that it must be timeless, spaceless, immaterial, personal, and powerful. Let's start with, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's start looking.
Yeah, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, I suppose, because obviously, like, our science doesn't really, and our physics doesn't really allow us to take a very detailed look at these abstract concepts, which is why I kind of try to focus on, purely logical exercises and, impossibility of infinite regress, cause and effect, and, kind of metaphysical things. But this kind of argument is pretty difficult to explain well, and I can understand why you would see problems with it.
Okay.
Right.
Well, Paul, you know what? You're starting to become a fun rival for me. So, like you called the last time I was here, and you're calling this time. I hope the conversations continue. If you heard the various ways that you can keep in contact with us, please do so, because you're right. This is, it's a good mental exercise and it's a lot of fun, but unfortunately, it's not getting us to look at the Kalam and say, yeah, absolutely, I agree with everything that says, up to and including what that cause must be. So I hope we can look forward to being in contact with you again.
Yeah, Paul, I do enjoy talking about the Kalam, so I wouldn't be against talking to you again on some platform. So yeah, hit me out.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul.
See you, bye.
We have one last call here. This is straight up you. So I've just been kind of like sitting back and enjoying how you answer these questions. So this question looks like it's straight up for you. This is Duane from Florida.
Hi, Duane.
Hey guys, hey BrainBug, hey Puck. Actually did call specifically because BrainBug was on. I heard your little intro and you sounded like the perfect person to help me out.
All right. What do you got?
So, like you, I keep exotics. My specialty is reptiles. I keep monitors primarily.
Mm-hmm.
So much fun. But part of all of that is I've got a cousin. She's 17. Her and I are really close. And she loves the animals, same line that I do. So we go to zoos, we go to reptile shows, we go to all these different events just to kind of see all these really cool animals. And I'm an atheist. She is a young earth creationist. So when we're traveling 2 to 3 hours to go to these shows or go to these zoos, the topic of evolution tends to come up because that's one of my favorite things to study. And as soon as I bring up anything about any animals being related, she just kind of does the stick her fingers in the ear and say Noah's Ark.
I actually have something awesome for you to talk about. I don't want you to do it. You can do it, but I don't want you to. At these reptile shows, I'm sure you've seen them before. They're adorable. Axolotls, right? They're aquatic amphibians, and they're related to salamanders. I know you probably are familiar with them. This is for the audience. So axolotls are indigenous, and they're highly endangered in the wild to this lake that's under Mexico City. And they never mature. They have these feathery gills on their on the sides of their necks for generations upon generations. Since we first discovered them, they've always been immature. So we took, and they breed well in captivity. I've raised them myself. They're really fun. They're adorable. And they have some cool features like the ability to regrow limbs. And so they're significant to scientific research. But if you expose them to iodine, just iodine, it triggers a polyphenic response for them to mature. And they become very much like their salamander cousins, being able to move terrestrial, they lose their gills, they change colors and take on the black coloration of a tiger salamander with the yellow spots on it. So we can see that this species diverged from this group to live in this lake, and due to the to their genetics being favored to stay in this neonatic state. Neonatic means retaining juvenile form. To stay in this neonatic state, to live in this lake was favored, obviously, because of the nature of the lake, and I believe parts of it are underground, so it was a really good environment for them to never mature out and have to try to venture onto land. They were successful in there, so they stopped having that step in their growth to take that adult form, yet they're still able to reproduce. So the fact that we can be a simple chemical, iodine, inspire them to change and to evolve into a fully mature salamander form is a great example of evolution. It's not one species turning into another where you point to this species and this monitor lizard. Oh, this savanna monitor is, cousins to this water monitor over here. It's not that scenario. It's this individual species we can alter and make it so that it regresses back to its ancestral forms. Pretty cool stuff. It's the same kind of stuff. Like we'll see it with like chickens too, that they can get them to in the embryonic stages, get them to regrow teeth. There's been a few different projects to try to regress domestic cattle back to the ancestral state, and because the auroch is extinct, the ancestor of all our domestic cattle is extinct. So there's been experiments to regress it back to that. So those are excellent examples to show what we have done and what we can do to exemplify evolution in real time.
Yeah, this hits home for me a little bit, because the Creation Museum, and I use that term very lightly, is only about 50 miles that way. And it seems like they have a gigantic gallery of information and scientists that are backing up whatever it is that they're talking about. But the thing is, it's a gish gallop, and fortunately we do have people who can debunk every little step, every single claim that they make, from lay people like Vice Rhino to more people who are in the scientific field saying that this is not possible. Getting a cousin to listen is a completely different story, and sometimes that doesn't work out unless they're willing to. So I'm just kind of curious. It's like, how have conversations gone? Like you said, she just kind of plugs her ears and doesn't really care, or has she just not been subject to the right information?
It's she goes to a Christian school. She's heavily involved in the church. So I try not to bring up too much because I know it's not going to go well. But it's one of those things, like we're sitting in the car for 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes we're traveling all day between different, we'll go like down south to Fort Lauderdale. We'll hit 2 or 3 different reptile shops in Fort Lauderdale, go to the Miami Zoo. So we're on the road all day and we're talking about these animals. And for me, I'll bring up, crocodilians are my favorite. And I'll talk about the different, how they diverged and all that. And she just kind of rolls her eyes. She's a teenage girl, rolls her eyes and just kind of ignores everything I say.
Other than our modern crocodilians that do the aquatic ambush predator shtick, we have multiple crocodilians in the fossil record that have evolved to fill different ecological niches, from a marine environment where like the Methusuchids. We have arboreal crocodiles that climb trees, even ones that ran. We had one that looked basically like an armadillo. Would being able to see some of the diversity that crocodiles used to have maybe help her to understand that. I still think that planting these little seeds, not saying this is evolution, but just saying, hey, look at these crocodiles. Or like I was talking with axolotl, look at this animal and what we can do with its ethology. So
And then what I'm hearing from
Yeah.
her social circumstances, being involved in church and going to Christian school, it's very possible that there's just too much of a web of supporting. Like, even if you knock out one limb from this particular tree, there's still so many others that will continue to support that. And some people aren't ready for it, and it's not their time to start seriously questioning everything. Getting to question evolution is an interesting start, though, because there's so much in science that depends on having a good understanding of biology. And so this is, you probably picked the best fight to fight. You picked the best person to possibly start this off with. But I'm curious, what does she bring up as counter evidence, if at all, or does she just stop listening?
So I've not brought up evolution to the point where it's become a serious discussion, just because it goes nowhere fast. And
okay.
I know all the counter arguments. You talk about the Art Museum. She wants to go there. She wants me to take her there on one of our trips.
I would go just for curiosity, only if it didn't put money in the wrong pockets.
I would get thrown out of the Art Museum.
Yeah. I almost want to go through there and have, all the counterpoints pulled up. But anyhow, the one serious discussion we got into at one point over religion and stuff like that, just kind of give you an example of the way it'll go, or tends to go, is we were talking about how the 10 Commandments didn't inspire the U.S. government and all that. Like, 10 Commandments weren't the original laws. And we kind of had a pretty serious discussion for a couple hours about it. And I brought up Hammurabi and his tablet and how much older that was. And the next day, she's like, oh, I'll think about it. And the next day she sends me like 6 sources, but they're all from like different apologetics.
Creation
so
ministries.
She's got this data bank. Yeah,
see, that comes down to sources too. But as someone that's that young, you're not going to be able to say no. That's a bad source, and this is a good source, and hand them like Dr. Josh Bowen's book or something. You're not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to spin that with her at this age. But maybe further down the road. Right now, like I said, I'd be planting those seeds about evolution. Talk maybe about domestication and how we can alter the genetics of a species to exhibit different characteristics, and how that might happen naturally in the wild, and why that might happen. Just plant those seeds.
Yeah. And you're putting yourself in a good position because you are someone that this cousin can talk to. And that is like incredibly valuable, instead of just shutting you out because you're one of the world. And you are, since you are of the world, you have absolutely nothing of value to say. You're in there. You're in a better position than all of us are, because you're someone that this person is willing to talk to. And that's what I like try to keep emphasizing anytime I'm on an ACA show. It's like we can have the conversation with the callers, and the people who are listening will get something out of it. But then the people who are listening will take these conversations on to other people, and you will be able to touch many more people than us hosts ever could. So thank you, Duane, for fighting the good fight for us, and continuing this. Like, as far as like changing your mind about evolution, BrainBug got it right. Just like start planting the seeds, start a little bit at a time. And when it comes to whether or not the 10 Commandments were a basis for American law, I don't know of any jurisdiction that's actually made it illegal to have graven images. So you can start with a Commandment 3 right off the bat.
That was one I just kind of gave up on that one after seeing all that. It's that one is not worth the fight for me necessarily, because it's not a big enough issue. But the evolution thing, I mean,
that is
our shared interest in the animals. That's going to be a huge thing, and that's going to hamper her when she goes to college, if she's got that mindset going into biology courses and going into any science courses. That mind of thinking.
That's a good direction to keep her going too. Most of the people that I know that came out of religion, and I know a lot of people who come out of religion that are science communicators like myself, they came out of it under the influence of somebody like you in their life. So keep that in mind too. The fact that she keeps engaging with you. I know you said she shuts down when you get into evolution, but if she doesn't shut down when you plant those little seeds about different things that may imply evolution, cultivars, domestication, the species that we discussed before, dinosaurs, talking about extinct species, going to the museum and looking at the ages of life, looking through these the geological record, because most museums have a good if they're a natural history museum, they have a good section that'll talk about the geological column. That's one of the things you can almost find in any natural history museum. So looking at that might help, exploring what was found on those layers.
All right, Duane, thank you very much for giving us a call. You know what? Keep us informed. Let us know how the conversations are going. And, there's a rather robust list of materials that people on Discord will be happy to give you to counter any evidence that I use that word again very loosely, any evidence that your cousin might bring up about creation. So keep up the fight and keep up the conversations and keep talking to us. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Take care, Duane.
Thank you guys for talking. Appreciate it.
So, BrainBug, what'd you think?
Oh, that was fun. Are we done already?
It's an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah, that was fun. We kind of ran the gamut though, didn't we? We had a call about teaching someone about evolution when you're dealing with the creationists. We had a Kalam call, which actually went a lot better than I thought it was going to. We were able to maintain a back and forth on it, and then we had UFOs. This has been a fun show. I'm so glad I popped on to do this with you guys.
Yeah, before the show starts, I'm always like, oh, I got to fill an hour and a half with stuff, and then by the end of it, it's like I can't believe we're done. I don't want to be done yet. This has been really fun. So, BrainBug, where can people find you?
So I am at the BrainBug YouTube channel is where you're going to find most of my stuff. And I am on Instagram, of course. I post a lot of pictures out there, so you can follow me on there and catch exclusive stuff. You can you want especially exclusive stuff, sign up for my Patreon, of course, and all kinds of exclusive things out there. And I'm usually pretty active on Twitter. I did want to follow up again because I did say not to do this in the when we took the call, but about the axolotl thing. Do not put iodine in with the axolotl. This was under scientific controlled experiments that they did this. I'm just saying that it's something that can be done and it's been demonstrated to be done. People do try to do it. It's awful and it kills them. And so do not do that. It was just an example of regressing them back to a previous state.
Thank you very much. And we will both be in Discord shortly after the show. Let's keep the conversation going. If you have anything more you want to ask us, we'll tell you how to get there shortly. If you like the show and you want to support us, one great way to do that, check us out on our Patreon, patreon.com/truthwanted. And like I said, we'll call out our patron of the week. You could be lucky enough to be one of those, and every dollar that goes to helping us out. So you can also check out our fabulous merch. I actually have several t-shirts and the mask myself. Go to bit.ly/AEN merch. There we go. Look at that. It's really weird in my area because my area code is 513. So people think it's a misprint. I have to tell them, no, it's an Austin show. All right. If you can't do that, it's very simple to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for these videos. Every engagement helps spread the word about our wonderful show and all the good things we're doing here. If you want to engage with us further, you can go to our Facebook fan group run by fans for fans, facebook.com/groups/truthfg. You can also join us at the atheist community of Discord at tiny.cc/AC. There it is. tiny.cc/ACA Discord. We also have a new one-stop shop channel for all your shows, ACA shows in podcast form. Go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. You can catch this and back episodes of Truth Wanted, Atheist Experience, and all your favorite ACA shows all in one stop in podcast form. Finally, I'm usually among them, but I'm in the host seat today, but I will always remember my roots. Let us please say thank you to the fabulous crew who is working hard behind the scenes to make all this possible. Hello, there is the crew. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for all your hard work. We got screeners and video producers and audio producers. Thank you very much for everything you do. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching and continuing to engage with us. Till next week, keep wanting the truth.
Happy Pride Month. Take care and be kind.